All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, children of all ages. Welcome to I don't know, do we call this a broadcast? Why not? I'm here with Craig Wesco. Everybody say hi. Oh, he's on this side. Hi, Craig.
Hey.
I was so excited. Craig came to me and said he saw a clip of something and he wanted to go over it with. And I'm like, yes, I definitely want to do this. But part of me felt a little uncomfortable and unsure about some of the things I wanted to do because it's got Charlie Kirk in it. And he died in a horrible, horrible death. And I did videos on him before, and I think he's a great activist. I think he's a great Christian activist. I'm not a political guy at all, so I really don't do that. But I don't have to agree with everything everybody does to like them. I love my mom, but I don't agree with everything she does. But because of the assassination, I'm like, I didn't feel comfortable posting the videos that I already had in the can. Like I did a few other ones because Charlie Kirk often deals with, I think at least 5 times that I know of, has dealt with veganism. And of course, that's what we do. So I wanted to comment on that. And again, because he's such a great Christian advocate, I wanted to at least challenge him on that. But I'm like, I felt weird about the timing. So I didn't post them. But when you said this, I'm like, yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's good because what we're doing here, or at least what I'm going to try to do, is it's not about Charlie. It's just about the ideas that he presented. And I think he presented a lot of the common thoughts that most Christians have about veganism. And I think he was mistaken on that. So I'm just correcting the mistakes on the veganism part.
How old was he? He's in his early 30s, wasn't he?
31.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was 31, that was over a decade ago, and I've learned a lot since then. So I didn't have it all figured out at that time. So if we're bringing up some things that he didn't quite have figured out, I wouldn't necessarily say that's too much of an indictment against him. Yeah, like I had something I wanted to say before we jumped into the video.
Oh, please
do. So the person who is doing the debate with him, his name's Alex. And I just met Alex last month, and he's the one who shared that he did this interview or this debate. And when I looked at it, I was like, oh, this would be a perfect thing to do with Steven. We could do a response video to this. And I want to say the beginning of the video, he says something about endorsing a political figure. And I want to start out by saying I don't have any political affiliations. I don't support any politician. Jesus is my one and only king, and his kingdom is not of this world. That's John 18:36. And so whatever political affiliations people have, whether it's left, right, center, off, whatever, I don't have any political ideology or affiliation with any of that. Just wanted to preface that. I'm here to talk about what Charlie Kirk specifically uses the Bible to reject some of Alex's claims in favor of veganism. And he seems to be speaking from the place of Christianity. And while he is speaking from what I would consider the predominant view within Christianity, he's not speaking from the place that's actually the correct view that Jesus was teaching. And so I wanted to correct some of those misconceptions.
Perfect. So let's start this. I'm going to bring this on screen if I can figure out which button to push there. Oh, look at this, man. I'm getting so good at this, Craig. All right, ready to hit play. Now, Craig, you got a few things you want me to stop at. Please just shout out and let me know because, I'm looking at the screen. You're over there, but you end up down there. So I don't want to miss it. So just yell or something. Just say, hey, stupid, hit the pause button.
Okay.
I'm used to being called that. After 35 years of marriage, I'm used to being called, hey, stupid, get down here and take out the garbage. Okay. All right. Oh, and also, if anybody's listening, you're going to hear the crowd cheering, but if it sounds a little bit like we altered it, I did. I just altered the audio because it wasn't the best audio quality. So I put a filter on it so we could at least hear the words better. What's his name? Alex, you said?
Yeah.
Alex did put the captions on the bottom, so that should help you follow along if you do have any trouble hearing.
Role in getting Trump elected, and I want to thank you for that. So a few weeks ago, you had a debate with a vegan. The video got taken down. Yeah. So I wanted to just follow up on that debate. You mentioned some things such as like feminization of soy or the health implications. What do you make of vegan strongmen? There's plenty of high performing athletes that make it totally viable to live on a plant-based diet. So I think using those as examples, it kind of paints the picture that maybe it's not really required to harm animals if we can get our nutrients from plants.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So a couple things. I don't love the way that debate went, so we're actually going to repost through some commentary, but yeah, duly noted.
Okay.
For a couple reasons. So if you're vegan, I just want you, I don't know how much you know about this or not, but like, if you're vegan, where do you get your CoQ10, your omega oils, your B12 from?
Okay, now I want to pop in. Yeah, is that good?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, first off, Alex asked an excellent question. He asked a question based on morality. Charlie completely dodged it and brought it into a health aspect, because I think Charlie in his heart knew that he can't defend animal abuse from a Christian standpoint, from a moral standpoint, from an ethical standpoint. And he has a choice of not eating food or eating food that comes from, a more ethical stance. So Alex brought in a good ethical point. He dodged it. Charlie, which is a great debate tactic, but he did just dodge it without not even saying, well, this is this. He's like, let's make it about health. And then he brought up CoQ10, which of course we don't need to take, our bodies produce it. He brought up, what other things? Well, go ahead. You got anything to say on that?
Yeah, I appreciate that he at least acknowledged that one of his previous debates that he had with a vegan, he said he didn't like how that debate went and he wants to modify some things and change his position on some things. And to me, I respect that, when somebody takes a position and they reflect on it and they go, actually, now that I'm not in the debate and I have time to reflect on it, maybe my opponent did have some real points. And so maybe I want to retract some of my positions. So I respect that. I think most of us who didn't start our lives off vegan, we were arguing against it before we started arguing in favor of it. So I just wanted to point out that I respect that.
I agree, but unfortunately now you and I have seen this whole video. So even though he said he respected it here, he said he was willing to, look at it again. Mm-hmm. Maybe he just didn't get the opportunity to. But he goes back to doing the same kinds of defenses he did in that video with Michael Bolitek. Is that how you say his name?
Okay.
Whatever. So he goes back into the same kind of anti-vegan rhetoric, and it was depressing, but yeah, good for him. And again, that's another reason why I like Charlie. At least he was willing to say, I didn't do good. I should relook at that. So it shows that openness that as an activist you look for, because you want to get in that little opening and get your foot in that door, and then just share more information about veganism. I even do that when I'm sharing the gospel. It's like, okay, I see a little opening. I want to get my foot in the door and then keep going. So, but again, what we're dealing with there was just classic redirection. And when all this stuff is being done, there's an audience, and what two guys would say if they were just having a conversation over a cup of coffee is a lot different than when we've got an audience. Because if I've got an audience in front of me, I've got to be entertaining. That's what I think the pressure that Charlie was feeling. And that's also, I think, some of the pressure that Alex was feeling, because he's not a professional speaker, Alex, but he did a great job. Oh my gosh, he through this whole video, as you watch this, I think you guys are going to love it. He did really good, but you could tell he had the ums and the ahs and the a little bit of fidgeting, because that audience that Charlie was pleasing with what he said was totally against him. So, kudos to Alex. That takes a lot of guts.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so you could like B12 comes from, like, they supplement the feed that animals get with B12. So we're just eliminating the middle cow and getting it direct from the source. Omega-3s, those also come the toughest. Yeah, I think that those come from algae. So you could just take algae supplements that have B12. And I would like to further add that, the American Dietetics Association, which is the largest body of health dietitians in America, I mean, they have a paper that basically says it's completely fine and practicable to inadequate to live a vegan lifestyle in all stages of life. And they actually promote some benefits in the reduction of certain health diseases.
If that's what you want to do, then you have the power to do that. I have other very serious objections I think there's a part of veganism that thinks as if you are saving animal lives, when in reality, a lot of the agricultural practices displace birds and kill a lot of.
Did you notice he just deflected again?
I did.
Okay, do you want to say it, or I mean, it's like it's just a topic shift. Alex comes up, he quotes the largest body of professional medical people. I mean, we're talking the Academy Nutrition of Dietetics. They are not a vegan organization. There are doctors, nurses, scientists, medical practitioners of all walks of life, and none of them, I mean, chances are, like the rest of the country, there may be 99, 98% meat eaters. So they didn't say that veganism is appropriate for all stages of life because they're trying to promote a vegan ideology. Their medical science, their experiences brought them to the point to know where they know that veganism, eating a vegan diet, is healthy for all stages of life, including infancy, pregnancy, athletes. We've got Olympic athletes competing at the top of the game, and they're doing it on vegan diets. And this is what Alex proposed. Charlie totally ignored it and brings up crop death.
And there's Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine was the other one that came to my mind, where doctors from and health experts from all across the board who are treating patients of all kinds of diseases, and they all unanimously agree that the best preventative measure is a whole food plant-based diet mixed with regular exercise for preventing all these major diseases. And the other thing I wanted to say about his point about the crop deaths, it's whenever somebody brings this up, it's clear to me that there's someone who hasn't really looked very far into the research, because it doesn't take long to figure out, all these soy deaths and corn deaths and wheat deaths. It's like, okay, well, who's responsible for all these crops? Oh, well, 90% of it is animal agriculture, and they're growing all these crops to feed to the animals to slaughter and feed to the people. And so it's like, okay, well, if I just eat those crops directly instead of eating the animals that are being fed by the crops, I'm actually reducing those crop deaths like tenfold. So even if all we care about is animals that die because of, crop harvesting of like soy and corn and all those kinds of things, still, for that issue alone, it's better to go vegan.
Exactly. They miss that so much. And also or at least from my Christian thought, would be, we can produce this much food to feed 80 to 90 billion confined animals, but we still have 9 or 10 million people a year starving to death. Isn't it a Christian's responsibility to feed the poor, to feed the hungry? I mean, we could take that 70% of land that's being used to grow soy, or is it 80%? These numbers might be a little bit different from website to website, but that's a huge number. We could take that land, we could probably give up 60% of it back to wildlife and only use that extra 10% to feed the poor, the hungry, the starving. And we don't do it because of our own gluttonous desires, because of our lust for meat. It's heartbreaking to me. I just think of the starving people and I'm like, why? So we can have a steak, so we can have a burger. It takes this much calories into account. What do they say? It's 9 calories in to get 1 calorie out. That's a terrible conversion rate. And so, all right, what
is it? Philippians 3:19, your God is your belly, your end is destruction.
Exactly. And when they say your God's your belly, it's because they got these meat goggles on where they just can't see the logic of that. If you're feeding 80 billion animals crops, that's a lot of crop death compared to if you just eat the crops yourself.
Yeah, Numbers 22. God says, eat it until it comes out your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you. And while it's still in their teeth, they died of a great plague in the Kibroth Hatava, the grave of craving. So probably should stop doing that.
Exactly. Like the nose thing till it comes out your nose just cracked me up as a kid. I used to sit in church and giggle when I heard that. Like I'm seeing steak come out people's nose,
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure God is trying to tell us he doesn't want us to do that.
You think?
I think so.
About animals as well. So it actually just hides the suffering. It doesn't actually eliminate the suffering.
Yeah.
Again, if that's what you want to do, fair enough. There's a very good documentary on Netflix all about, vegan weightlifters, and The most legitimate component of that
Game
is when
changers.
they actually measure
Yep.
the blood samples between someone that eats meat and that does not.
Yeah.
But we also must be very clear, veganism is very expensive. It's something that a lot
Okay, I have to stop there. Did that get you?
Yeah.
So it's like just for the sake of this video, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go on ChatGPT and Claude and those other AIs just so I can get a ballpark price. And I used to do it with just breakfast, but so if I took a breakfast, and I eat healthy when I'm at home, when I go out, as long as it's vegan, I'll eat any junk I can get because I'm that kind of vegan. But at home, I eat 95% healthy. So I'm like, breakfast is going to be like 3 ounces, 4 ounces of oatmeal, some almond milk, crush, some walnuts on top, some blueberries, some bananas, sprinkle some hemp and chia seed across the top, and maybe if I decide I want to go party, a drizzle of maple syrup. Absolutely, except for the maple syrup part. But everything in there is super duper healthy, and that breakfast is delicious. Maybe you don't like blueberries, you don't like bananas, but hopefully you guys that are listening will get the idea of what I'm trying to get at here. But that breakfast that I just described for me is 85 cents. 85 cents. How does he get that being vegan is expensive? He's just saying that. Oh,
no, go finish. Sorry.
I'm going to say people just throw that out to make veganism sound scary, like only us, rich white guys can do it. No, it's 85 cents for a good, healthy breakfast. A lot of days I'll just have a slice of toast with peanut butter on it. But, go ahead, your turn.
Well, maybe he's talking about the expensive lunch and dinner of, how expensive bulk beans and rice can get. Like, geez. But 10 pounds for how much is that? Like $5? Geez, who can afford that?
And it lasts you forever.
Yeah.
Oh, I did dinner too. So I did a dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, vegan meatballs, of course. And it came out to $2.97 for spaghetti, meatballs, and a slice of bread on the side. Okay, $2.97. So, and if I did a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, can you tell I'm big on peanut butter? It's got to be my second favorite food. My lunch would have been, was that one 85 or 87 cents? Okay, but under 90 cents. So my whole meal is a day. If I had the oatmeal for breakfast, peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, and the spaghetti and meatballs for dinner, I'm under $5. I'm like at $4.50 a day. That's not, I don't have to have Charlie's money to eat vegan. Anybody can do it.
Yeah, and I mean, you can eat expensive food as a vegan. Like when I go to an all vegan restaurant and I order a meal, it's $20, and that's a lot for a meal. But then you go to the non-vegan restaurant and get the same type of meal, and it's also $20. So why is veganism seen as expensive? Just eat the cheap version of veganism, just like you would eat the cheap version of non-vegan. And if you want the more expensive version, just eat the vegan version of the more expensive one.
It's a scare tactic to keep people from even considering it, is what it is. So,
would not necessarily be. It is something. The only way you can do veganism is if you have money, you have tons of attention, and you understand the vitamin deficiencies that do exist.
Sure.
Which again, CoQ10, omega-3s, and vitamin B12. That's.
Do you want to talk about the vitamins? I think everybody knows that, but we can if you want.
I'm good.
Legit. If you don't actually supplement on that, you could have major deficiencies. And everybody's wired differently.
Yeah.
But I would say most people, just to guess, and there are studies to support this, they would struggle on a plant-based diet.
What studies? The thing about when somebody's in a position of authority, like Charlie, like even you, Craig, I keep forgetting what side you're on. You're on this side, even though on my camera you're here. Even though you're in a position of authority, there's a lot of times you say stuff and I'm like, you know what? I trust Craig. I trust his opinion. He knows what he's talking about, so I'm going to believe him. That's what Charlie's audience does. And I think that's a big part of his audience. And I'm part of his audience. But what the heck is that magic bullet that makes me go, is that for reals? And then I go online and check it. And especially nowadays with AI, it's just so easy to fact check. I don't know why people fall for that.
Yeah, I don't get how you're interpreting the data of like, what is it, 1%, or maybe if you're generous, 2% of people can't survive on a vegan diet because of health restrictions with like allergies and stuff like that, and somehow 1 to 2% is considered most people can't do it. It's like I don't know that no matter how you slice the statistics here, that you can get most out of that extremely small, narrow portion of people that can't do it physiologically. But however, everyone who doesn't want to do it seems to think they're in that 1%, or it's probably even less than 1%, that somehow can't do it and has to supplement with an animal product.
Insane.
For many different reasons. Number one, plants literally do attack your system. That's actually in a good way.
Okay, do you want to do that one, or just plants attacking your system? I'll just say it real brief. The things that plants do that would be negative, you would have to eat this much for it to even start to have a negative effect. And this is what I got from Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I heard them. I don't remember the numbers, so this is my official charts. Okay, this is how I make my statistics. It's just that the way the numbers he was given, you have to do that much just to even begin to see a little bit of something. And what is it going to do? Give you diarrhea or something? It's not a problem. You'll never consume that much.
Yeah, that's why they have the plants attacking your system ward in the hospital, or all the people who are.
Come on, but you see the nurses. Oh, what happened to Charlie or what happened to Ben in bed number 7? Tomatoes.
Yeah, too many fruits and vegetables. It didn't have enough dead animal carcasses, and yet we see all these number 1 killers with like stroke and heart attack and all kinds of things that are directly being linked to consumption of animal products. And it's like, well, let's not talk about how the animal products are attacking our system and literally responsible for over half the deaths in the world and in America. Yet we're going to sort of sensationalize this plants attack your system as if, oh, you got to be careful with all these fruits and vegetables.
The only time bananas ever hurt me was when I dropped the box of them on my foot. Ha! Okay, kidding.
You slip on the peel.
Literally, as you digest fruits and veggies, they minorly attack your system. It all depends on your gut, and for some people, they need some form of animal protein. It actually helps them with digestion.
Sure.
Okay, when he said some people need, I don't think he's got any medical science to back that. He sure didn't offer any. So I asked a nutritionist friend of mine, and she's like, no, anything that if you have a problem with digestion that you think meat will help you digest, there's digestive enzymes you can get over the counter that are made from herbs that will help you equally get the kind of digestion, help with the digestion problems you might be having. So that would be my take on that. But again, he's just saying stuff because he knows he doesn't have to prove it. That audience is there to support him, and he can get away with just saying, this is the way it is. Kind of like a Joe Rogan thing. I'm the star. I can say what I want.
Support my stuff with evidence, and I encourage people to look it up for themselves to verify it.
You do.
Slower to digest, they get more protein out of it. So know your blood type, know how you approach things, and if you want to be a vegan, more power to it. What I don't like though is when vegans shame us meat eaters as if we're
I think they're
terrible people. That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. But I think there should be some sort of moral obligation to a degree, right? Like, I mean,
this is where I like where he comes in with the moral thing, because that's true. We don't shame meat eaters for eating meat. We shame what we're calling to their attention is Charlie's a Christian. He's eating food that was produced from animal abuse. He's eating food that was produced using bestiality. He's eating food that was produced that will stop us from feeding the poor and hungry. He has a moral obligation as a Christian not to eat that stuff. That's how I would feel about it. So that's what I'm calling to his attention. I mean, if you want to eat roadkill, go for it. I don't care if you eat meat that way.
And you left out covetousness, where
That's
we're coveting something that is not intended for us. The milk is for the baby cow. The eggs are
right.
to hatch into chickens. The animal flesh is for the animal. That the flesh is what they need to survive. It's their own body that you're eating. So that's not what's intended for us. God gives us the fruit of the tree and the plants of the ground and says, this is to be your food. So that's what's intended for us. If you're desiring and eating things that aren't intended for you, that's covetousness. Not to mention thou shalt not kill.
Did you notice, I at least I got this from that. I think he was going to try and discuss a thing that was popular a few years back called the blood diet. Have you ever heard of that?
In the book of Enoch, it talks about that's the diet of demons, but go on.
Okay. Well, it's not about eating blood. It's like eating the right blood or eating the right foods for your blood type. Some people, depending on their blood type, need to eat certain kinds of foods. That was debunked so many times over. And if you want to just look up blood type diet debunking, you can find a whole list of that.
Probably wouldn't have the same feelings if those were like dogs in slaughterhouses, right? We would probably have a moral objection to that. If it's like a minor inconvenience that you just got to take a B12 supplement every morning, like, or maybe twice a week, I don't think it justifies the pain and suffering that we are inflicting on these animals. And so I just want to, like, are you actually making the claim that you can't thrive on a plant-based diet easily?
It depends on.
I've been doing it 8 years, and I don't pay that much attention.
It depends on who you are and your. Again, I have serious problem. I could not be on plant-based. I know that.
Oh. All right. As an activist, I like how he immediately started off with going back to the moral obligation. Because I think that's the only way to turn somebody like Charlie around. It's got to be the moral, because he'll do it. If he really believes God doesn't want him to eat food from animal abuse, he'll do it. But he hasn't been convinced of that. So I think Alex hammering away at the moral thing was good. But then Alex kind of shifted a little bit, didn't he? He shifted into, what was the next thing he brought up on that? With the dog, and then saying you don't think you can
about species.
Yeah, you don't think you can thrive. And then Charlie said, what was his words? He could not be on a plant-based diet. Now, that's not about truth. That's choice. He chooses. He's choosing not to get by in it. He can. And he's ignoring his own moral framework to satisfy his, what we would call gluttonous desire for animal products. It's not a matter of he can't, it's that he chooses not to.
Yeah, and even if he says he can't, well, it says we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. So if we can't do it on our own, Christ can strengthen us to do it. And it also says in Galatians 5:22 and 23 that self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. So if you're saying I can't, well, Christ can. And if you are a Christian, then you should be bearing the fruit of God's Spirit, which can exhibit that self-control. So again, this is not an indictment on Charlie Kirk. This is an indictment on any Christian who's using the Bible to justify doing things that are contrary to the will of God.
Yep. We've got the strength through Christ to do all things, and giving up meat is such an easy one of those all things. It's, maybe it's a little bit hard. I can see, like, it wasn't hard for me when I did it. It was confusing. Back when we did it, there wasn't a whole lot of information, so I was eating poorly. And I think maybe if Charlie did that, maybe that's what he didn't want. Or if if a vegan tried that, or a wannabe vegan tried eating, they might be confused on what to eat. I did a lot of pasta, a lot of bread. I was feeling very sluggish for the first few weeks, maybe even a couple months, until my wife, really researched it. And then all of a sudden started making these gourmet vegan meals. Again, affordable though. And my energy level went through the roof, and now I'm in the gym 5 days a week. I'm 64 years old. I'm in the gym every other 5 days. It's crazy. So if I can do it, Charlie can do it.
Yeah, and I tried to go vegan 20 years ago, I guess 22 years ago now, and I found it hard. I think it's way easier today than it was 20 years ago. But I went vegetarian overnight. I was like, well, I'll do that instead. And it took me like 5 years, almost 6 years to go from vegetarian to vegan. So if someone says, well, it's hard, okay, sure. There's a lot of things that are hard in life, but this is something that's important to God. It's important to our health. It's important to the animals. It should be important to everyone, important enough to start making progress toward that goal. that if you feel like doing it overnight is too hard, great. Well, start somewhere. Don't just make excuses to not start at all.
Exactly.
I'm better when I able to eat maybe the salmon or chicken or steak. Like I perform better, I think better. My body does not agree with just simply plants, right? But that.
Okay, I've got to challenge that too. Never once did I hear him say, hey, I'm going to do an experiment. I am going to go vegan for 3 months or 4 months and see how my body feels. So you can compare. I mean, right now he just said, what was his words? I want to try and see if I can see that here. He said he could not be on a plant-based diet, that he feels better eating meat. He feels better. You know what? It's like, Charlie, did you ever once go 3 months eating a whole food plant-based diet? Not even go vegan. You can keep your leather shoes, your leather wallet, but you didn't give yourself a trial to where you could compare the two. I did. Okay, when I didn't give myself a trial, but I remember how I felt prior. I ate junk like I just described. And then when I finally figured out how to eat right, my energy level went through the roof. That could happen to anybody who's listening to us right now. If you're thinking about going vegan, give it a shot. 2 or 3 months, it's going to be a simple thing for you. You can do it. But Charlie is saying that he knows without giving us any real trial, any evidence, and to support that. And it's just bro talk.
And I want to translate into Christian language what he's saying. And certainly he wouldn't agree that this is what he means, but I'm saying this is what he is suggesting. Is he says, my body doesn't want this. And to translate that would be, my flesh doesn't want this. And in the Bible, this is contrasted with the will of the Spirit. So the Bible says that the Spirit is contrary to the flesh, and we are not to serve the desires of the flesh. Instead, we should rule over them. We should crucify the desires of the flesh. And so when he's saying, well, my body just won't have it. And as you pointed out, well, he didn't even try it. So he doesn't really know how his body's going to respond. He's just, those desires of the flesh are keeping him from even trying to give up this violence and cruelty toward animals. And so I just want to point out that anyone who thinks, oh, well, I could never do that, like my body isn't going to allow me to do that, just know that that's the desires of the flesh that's speaking. So we're not to serve those desires. We're supposed to crucify those and instead serve the Spirit that's contrary.
It's I looking at my notes here. It's he's never done the controlled trial is the point I'm trying to make. He could have spent 3 or 4 months on it, never did. I'm trying to think of how to say it. He's just avoiding the ethics of it. Okay, I don't want to make this another, I already said enough of it. Yeah, I feel like I'm just going over the same thing just because I'm kind of riled, you know?
Yeah, we're about to get into the Bible verses, so that's where I have all my stuff to say.
Well, good.
Everyone's different, right? But there is a moral contention, though, that is underlaying of veganism, which I don't know if you're a Christian or not.
I'm not.
Okay, and
I respect
that's fine.
The values of the Catholic
So yeah,
teachings.
We as Christians believe human beings are superior to animals, and we are not moral equivalents. We believe that we are given by God the direction to be able to subdue the earth and to be fruitful and multiply for our purpose. Yeah. And so, while slaughterhouses
can we stop it here?
Yep. I can see you.
Yeah, so this is the first point that I wanted to make. He says that we're superior to the animals. Well, I don't know that this is exactly what he had in mind, but Matthew 6:26 is what people usually quote to reference this, where Jesus says, look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? He says, see, you're more valuable than animals, so you can kill them and eat them. Well, that's not the point that Jesus was making. He was saying, look, God cares about the animals. He cares about them so much that he feeds them and takes care of them. So how much more will he take care of you also? He's doing that to instill faith in his disciples. If God doesn't care about the animals, this whole point that Jesus is trying to make doesn't work. If they're like, well, God doesn't care about animals, why would he care about me? He's like, right. So clearly he's saying that God does care about the animals. But I think the main one that he has in mind here is Genesis 1:28. Mm-hmm. And Genesis 1:28 and of course 1:26, where God says to do it. And then 1:28 is when he does it. He gives us dominion over the animals. He says, the humans, you're to subdue the earth and subdue or have dominion over all the animals. And he makes this his point that we have now permission to kill the animals and eat them. But if you just keep reading to the very next verse in 129, God says, eat the fruit of the tree and the plants of the ground, that shall be your food. So dominion in God's image and likeness requires us to be vegan. That's the very first thing that God uses to describe what that dominion in his image and likeness is the diet. And he describes it an entirely plant-based diet. And so if he's justifying doing the opposite of that thing that God instructed when he gave us that dominion in his image and likeness, he's advocating for dominion in the opposite of God's image and likeness, dominion in the image of the flesh, in the image of the adversary, in the image of that which is contrary to the will of God. So somehow, even though this is one of the go-to verses for Christians to justify not being vegan, if you actually read it, it's one of the most powerful reasons to be vegan.
Exactly. I often say right after he gives us dominion, it's the next sentence where he puts vegan boundaries on our dominion. And the part about living in God's image, I remember, Moses is telling the people that were slaves in Egypt for 400 and something years, he is telling them here about something that happened way back in the beginning. He's saying, when God made you in his image, they didn't know anything about that God. They were believing, a lot of them believed in the Egyptian gods at that time. So what did they know about the God of Moses from that time? Well, they only had about 25 verses prior. They know that God created. He created the heaven. He created the earth. He created the water. He created the stars. He created the animals. He created the fish. He did nothing but create. There was no killing involved in any of that. What makes them think that being made in God's image allows them to do anything other than create? Even God's first order was be fruitful and multiply. Create. All right. Take care of the garden. Create food. Take care of the animals. It's all in a positive. There was no death ever implied by any of that. But somehow in our 21st century understanding, we don't look at it the way the Israel did at that time, the captive slaves. We're looking at it through the eyes of a very gluttonous 21st century society. Did I get that?
Yeah.
I keep looking over to Craig for approval. Because you're the boss, man.
No, okay. Well, we serve the same boss.
Yeah.
Not ideal, obviously, and can be kind of very grotesque.
Yeah.
I think that people that, for example, they eat elk or they eat bison, that was able to free roam.
I often think back to when he talks about the elk and the bison. I think he's referring to, it's Deuteronomy, is it 12? Or hold on, wait, I should have it up here. Where he says you can, when you get into Canaan and when God gave restrictions on the animals that you did eat, you had to bring them to the temple or you couldn't eat them if they weren't associated with sacrifice. There would be a time when they get into Canaan where the borders of the city would be so big they could not get to that temple to do their sacrifices. So God was saying you can, but if you do it, you can't just do it any way you want. You have to do it a specific way. One of those specific ways was you have to do it in the way that you would eat the deer and the gazelle, which meant you had to go hunt it yourself. You couldn't just take it out of your flock. Do you think that's what he's referring to?
I didn't even think along those lines. I was thinking that he was just trying to justify like free range hunting kind of thing. But if that's what he has in mind, those restrictions, one of which is drain all the blood out. You can't consume blood, which is an impossible instruction. You can only drain most of the blood out. And so if you eat the flesh, it still has some blood in it, which means you cannot be fully serving God in this way and abstaining from breaking his commandments unless you just eat the diet that he says is very good, which is no animal flesh at all. But then, of course, my reading and what I think Jesus also taught and all the prophets taught is that God did not even allow for this animal sacrifices and eating of flesh. That was the view of like Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. That's what Jesus is quoting when he disrupts the temple. He quotes Jeremiah chapter 7, saying, "You made my father's house into a house of violence, a den of violence." And so I am of the opinion that these passages in Leviticus and Deuteronomy where it depicts God as saying we're allowed to do these things, even with all the restrictions that you're talking about. I'm not of the opinion that that's what Moses actually taught, nor do I think Jesus and the prophets taught that Moses taught that. But that's a whole nother issue.
It is. When I'm talking to a Christian who has just got their heels dug so deep into this point of view, I sometimes let them have the win. And I will say, all right, let me deal within your parameters, your paradigm of this, that it's, that you can do it. I would then say, all right, then why aren't you doing it according to all the rules? Like you just said, pouring the blood back on the ground. Why aren't you also in that Deuteronomy passage? It says when you go in and you take over the city and you destroy the temples, before you eat that and you go hunting for that elk and that bison, before you do that, did you destroy the Mormon temples, the Buddhist temples? Did you see what I mean by saying that? Obviously, you're not doing what you think that permission meant. So it doesn't work in your defense. You see what I mean? It's like I agree with what Craig is saying is right. But at the same time, I'm like, if I can't get them to there, that would be my fight from within their paradigm.
Sure. Yeah. And of course, there's 100 different reasons in the Bible to be vegan. And so if one pathway, they're not convinced by it, well, it shouldn't be a roadblock. There's 99 more pathways because they all point to God's very good will. So we could go in by any of those ways. They all point to it.
I think I see no moral issue with that. And I also see a lot of health upsides. And then I would just kind of challenge that when human beings were at their healthiest, which is not today, we were not eating a vegan diet.
I love that Alex put these little notes in here. It's great. He did a great job. I give this video, a thumbs up.
Yeah, and Alex, by the way, we're only going to look at the 10 minutes where he's actually talking to Charlie Kirk, but then he goes on for like another 25 minutes, giving his own sort of explanation after the fact. So if you want to hear all of Alex's explanations, you can watch his original video. But the point that I wanted to make here about the health that Charlie just made, he said, when humans were at their healthiest, they weren't vegan. And I was like, did you read about the Garden of Eden? That's when we were at our healthiest, and that's when we were vegan. So according to the Bible, when we were at our healthiest, we were all vegan. Even the animals were all vegan. Genesis 1:30. And another example that comes to my mind is Daniel chapter 1, where people within Christianity, they'll do this thing called the Daniel diet or the Daniel fast, where usually for like 40 days, sometimes for Lent, they'll give up eating all animal products based on what's described in Daniel chapter 1. And that's where Daniel, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, it says they refused to eat the king's delicacies and to drink his alcohol. So they refused to eat the animal products and the alcohol. And he says, test us for 10 days. And so they're eating only vegetables and water for 10 days. And at the end of those 10 days, it's determined that they are not only healthier than all the people eating the alcohol and the animal products, but they're also 10 times wiser, 10 times more knowledgeable, 10 times better able to discern visions and dreams and things like that. And so when I think, what biblical basis is there to say that humans are healthier when they're eating animal products rather than being vegan? Well, every time that the Bible compares the two, it seems like the vegan version is compared favorably to the other one. They're 10 times wiser. They're healthier. This is God's very good will from the beginning. This is what he says is very good. When does he ever say animal products are very good to eat? And when does he say that these people who ate animal products, they're healthier? No, it says they died of a plague when it was still stuck in their teeth. Like, where are you getting this idea that humans were healthiest when they were eating meat? Like, that's definitely not the biblical view.
No, God put a ton of restrictions. Israel was a meat-eating society, and God put restrictions to make it so difficult to eat meat. But they see it as those are permissions. I see it as God saying it's restrictions to totally wean them off their gluttonous desire for animal flesh. But it's an ongoing process. You can't if you just read what's in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, you'll get that impression. But by the time you get to Jeremiah and Hosea and Amos, you hear God didn't want animal sacrifices at all. you see the bigger picture. And unfortunately, too many people, I guess they just never read the entire Bible. They go to church on Sunday, which is wonderful, but they're only getting spoon-fed what their pastor already believes, and it just keeps going and going and going and going.
That's why we're here, to
Yeah.
fill in those gaps.
That's why we're doing it. That's why you got some long-haired hippie juggler on the internet saying, no, you should do it this way.
Right, so there's 3 types of food. There's carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard for vegans to be able to get enough protein.
Sure.
It's legit, you can agree. So you have to get.
I don't think it's that hard, but I mean,
You have to eat a lot of tofu, which is basically, soy,
there's a lot of different sources of protein. But
yeah, I mean, there's legumes, right? There's nuts.
But again, back to like, the vegan strongmen, like, they're killing it. They're, there's Patrick Baboumyan's the strongest. He was once held the strongest person in Germany.
I don't contest.
So, well, let me,
It's all a free, if you have free will to eat as you choose.
let me eliminate this whole, you're basically talking about pragmatics. Like you're maybe not fully convinced that you can be vegan.
No, I think some people can, some people can't. It's personalized. The question is, do you think everyone?
Well, again, okay, so let's just clear that debate up then. Like if we found a crop out in the Amazon that tasted just like that tasted just like meat, everything was equivalent. You have the same nutrients, the same compound, the same taste, the same cost. Everything was held equal. In that situation, would you consider veganism, or would you resort to the dominion over animals?
I don't know is the answer. I mean, it's a hypothetical. Again, I think there's actually something good about getting animal protein in your system, and I think we.
You want me to pause there?
He's like, so even if you could get everything you needed, which he can, unless he's in this very small minority that potentially can't, but even then you can supplement. He's like, so even if you could get everything you needed and all these dietary red herrings that you keep making were invalid, would you do it? He's like, honestly, I don't know. I might still serve the desires of my flesh and kill animals for no reason.
Yeah.
He didn't come right out and say it, but he's like, yeah, honestly, maybe I still would kill animals for no reason.
Good catch. I did not catch that.
But we're about to find out why he might still kill animals for no reason.
We underestimate actually all the benefits from muscle mass to neuroscience and development. All that to be said, it's your own free will. Use your agency to do as you see fit.
Right.
I would caution some people though, and there are a lot of people that try veganism and they get super depressed and they don't feel themselves. You just have to know your body.
He's never met a meat eater that doesn't get depression or doesn't get sick. I mean, it's insane.
Know your system.
Yeah, I will say I do know a lot of vegans that are depressed, and I would also even be inclined to agree from my own experience that vegans tend to be more prone to depression than non-vegans. But I would also contest, just by hearing testimonies from people, it has absolutely nothing to do with the diet. It has to do with the fact that now they see the apathy of all the people around them to the immense suffering that's being caused to animals, and just how much people just don't care about it. And that's depressing. That's very, very depressing. And so he's like, well, vegans are depressed. Yeah, because we're awake and everyone else is like just giving in to destroying God's kingdom and not caring about the will of God and not caring about inflicting immense suffering on God's creatures. And why is nobody else depressed about this? God says he's near the brokenhearted, and blessed are those whose hearts break and who mourn for these suffering. You will inherit the kingdom. And he's like, oh, well, I wouldn't be vegan because eating a plant-based diet makes you depressed. God literally said at the beginning, this is supposed to be your diet. He didn't design us to be depressed. Okay, it's the fact that everybody is ignoring God that's causing people who are trying to listen to God and want God's will to be done on earth and heaven. They're depressed by the state of the world. Like, that's what's causing the depression. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, you're absolutely right, Craig. It's not the diet. It's the world. It's when we are fighting the best we can just to save the life of one chicken at a slaughterhouse, and then we come home and the people we love that we would give our lives for, our family, our friends, And they're just buying dead chickens just on a whim and then throwing half of it away, even if they want to. It's just, that's the depressing part, is that the people we love don't see things as clearly as we think we do. That's the hard thing. How do you convince them? Oh, what is that magic bullet that got you and me and just is missing the rest of the world?
And I believe that
Right, but
final point, yeah.
But when it comes to, like, you know, with the great harm, with extraordinary harm comes an extraordinary justification. Like, we're talking about the life and death of these animals here, so you really gotta.
I don't think it's extraordinary harm. I think
it's the death of an animal. You're prematurely killing it. Even if you talk about elk and all that, like, it's still taking the life away from that animal, and you wouldn't do that in the human context. So what's the symmetry breaker?
So I want to point out, and I actually I was doing street outreach a few years ago, and somebody made a similar point. And so Alex is saying, when it comes to extraordinary harm, in order to justify committing that extraordinary harm or inflicting that extraordinary harm, it requires an extraordinary justification. And Charlie was just like, I don't think I'm causing extraordinary harm. Well, literally billions of animals are being killed every day. That is not only extraordinary harm, that is the most extraordinary harm that's going on in the world. The most extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And so to sort of brush that off and say, I don't think I'm contributing to extraordinary harm. It's like, wake up. Like, go visit a slaughterhouse, watch Earthlings, watch Dominion, watch one of those films where you can just see what's happening to the animals. And then if you can honestly say, I don't think any harm is being caused to animals by doing this, it's like, then you just are, you do not have an ounce of compassion in you if that's the case. And I seriously doubt that if Charlie Kirk watched Earthlings, he would come away from that and say, I don't think any harm was caused to any animals throughout that video. I think this is, again, like what you were saying, this is a talking point. And the whole reason, again, that we're even doing this is to push against these talking points, because if somebody just listens to Charlie Kirk or anyone else, any other Christian using the Bible to justify animal cruelty, they're going to bring up all these same points. And so we want to push back against these points and say, look, these are all fictitious, false, verifiably false points. And so if we want to be on the side of truth, we want to be on the side of the will of God, we want to acknowledge that this is, in fact, the most extraordinary harm that's being caused in the world.
It's interesting that at about the 4.5-minute mark, he said slaughterhouses are grotesque. But now he's saying that he sees nothing wrong with it. I would, again, if let's just say I'm working within his paradigm, that, okay, if slaughterhouses are gross, then shouldn't you, at the very least, because of your moral obligation to cause as least amount of harm as possible, Sar Ba'alachim, it's a Bible thing, it's a Christian thing, even though it's a Jew thing. Shouldn't you, at the very least, not eat food that is sourced from a factory farm? Shouldn't you do what you said earlier by only eating the elk and the bison, or as the Bible says in Deuteronomy, the hart and the roe, which is the deer and the gazelle? Shouldn't you at least only be eating what you hunt like that? So yeah, Charlie, go ahead, hunt, but don't eat like that. I mean, you see there, he's not walking his own talk.
Mm-hmm. Like the best, very good thing to do is to not harm the animals at all. And it's also a Christian thing. Jesus says the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, God created the world. He created the animals first and blessed them first. And then he created the humans. And so we are all created to be neighbors of each other. And so the only way to truly love our animal neighbors as ourselves is, at the bare minimum, to not kill them and eat them. Right. That's why he gives us those vegan boundaries, as you call them, on our dominion. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very important point that people overlook.
Yep. And I hope it doesn't come off like I'm saying I'm approving any eating of animals. I think it's 100% wrong. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to do is just give you, the activists out there, an idea that if you work within the paradigm that they give you, you can still beat them up. You can still come out on top and make them at least give some consideration to a vegan lifestyle by working within what they believe, by saying, you don't do it this way. You're saying this is gross, then okay, fine. Don't eat the food that's gross. Only eat it from the hunting aspect. Or if you feel, you see what I mean? It's, I think I made my point. Okay, I find that I repeat myself. When I do the editing, I'm like, I repeated myself twice. I'm just going to delete that.
Than consciousness. That's where I don't want to get too deep into that.
Okay.
Human beings are way more than consciousness. We have a soul. You don't agree with that? We do.
I mean, I think we have a soul.
Yeah,
I would argue that animals have a soul. Like, you don't think your dog has a soul?
No.
No.
No. No, I don't believe my animal. No.
That,
If you believe your dog has a soul, that's not a Christian belief. Just to be clear.
can you clarify?
Okay, there,
that?
we can
Like,
stop
what
there.
What do you mean by that?
A soul.
Yeah, he says that is not a Christian belief that your dog has a soul. And I just want to point out, since he keeps bringing up dominion, so let's go back to dominion, where in Genesis 1:28 God gives us dominion, and in 1:26 he says that's in his image and likeness that we have this dominion. 1:29 is where he sets those vegan boundaries on our dominion in his image and likeness. And then in Genesis 1:30, that's where he says, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the ground, everything that has nefesh chaya, which means a living soul, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw everything that he had made, and it was very good. So literally the first thing God says after he gives us dominion in his image and likeness is to eat an entirely plant-based vegan diet. And then the very next thing he says is, and all the animals are also to be eating a vegan diet. All the animals, they all have a living soul. So the second thing that he says after he tells us to be vegan is that animals have a soul. And now Charlie Kirk is saying, well, we have dominion over animals, and that's justification for not being vegan, which is the exact opposite of what God says. Then the next thing God says, he says the exact opposite of, well, animals don't have a soul. Literally the second thing God said after he gave us dominion is animals do have a soul. So it's like, I feel like I wish he was still alive so we could have this conversation and just be like, look, let's read Genesis 1 together. And I feel like everything he's saying is the exact opposite of what Genesis 1 actually says. And so let's just read it together.
And also into Genesis 2, Genesis 2, verse 7, verse 19, and then again going into Genesis 9. Again, that word nefesh chaya is used for both humans and animals alike. There is no difference between the use of that word. The King James uses nefesh over 400 times, and not in any instance where it speaks of nefesh for animals or nefesh for humans does it even imply that there's some kind of difference in the souls. It's the same thing.
Yeah, some translators in English will make a distinction where there isn't one. So if he's only using particular English translations, then I could see where somebody would get misled by the translator. But if you look at the original Hebrew, there, like you said, it's very clear that there is no distinction. And so yeah, I'm not sure how he's drawing these conclusions, but if we just look at the Bible, at the passages he's referencing, they clearly say the exact opposite of what he's saying.
And there's other things that we can take into consideration too. I think into Genesis chapter 9 where he makes covenants. Over 5 times he makes covenants with animals. You don't make a covenant with something that doesn't have a soul. You don't promise to spare their lives. You don't do that with a soulless rock or a plant. And that's another thing. It's when it comes to the people who are like, oh, plants have lives, I go, God breathed the breath of life or breathed nefesh into humans and animals, and plants will be their food. He never breathed that into plants. They have a life. It's a different kind of life. Obviously, it's different than the life that was breathed into humans and breathed into animals. And that's why we can eat plants. But it seems like there's so many instances. It's heartbreaking that, it's also something like this that was also, as I was looking and researching the video that we're doing today, I came across Billy Graham doing a speech talking about how animals do have souls, but yet he still didn't go vegan either. That's what causes our vegan depression. Oh gosh.
It all comes full circle.
Soul is that which is made in the image of God. period.
Okay.
In Genesis says only one being in the animal kingdom is made in the image of God, and that is man and woman. Not the dog, not the leopard, not the cat, not the cheetah, not the elephant, not
So
the...
then I can get
Ding, ding, ding. He finally said something accurate.
Did you want me to go back?
No, just he finally said something accurate. Humans are the only beings that are described as being created in his image and likeness. Yes, that is correct. And what does that mean? It means to eat a plant-based diet and love your neighbor as yourself by taking care of all your animal neighbors as well. And so that's what it means to have that dominion in his image and likeness. But you're absolutely right. That is unique to humans. And arguably, angels have dominion in the heaven and we have dominion on the earth. But aside from angels, there would be no other beings that are explicitly described as having dominion. So he is right about that.
And again, as I said in the first 26 verses prior to that, all Israel knew about God, this God of Moses, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one that just saved them from 400 years of slavery, is that he was in the creating business. He did nothing but create. There was no murder and death, and cheeseburgers were not even on the radar of Adam and Eve at the time God made them. And to think that, what did God, okay, after God got done creating everything, what were his instructions? Simple: make babies. Okay, everybody's done sex, we can all go for that. Yay, woohoo. And then take care of the animals and tend the garden. It's a simple gospel to preach. That's all that was required. Nowhere did it say build a slaughterhouse. It's not even implied. They never would have got that. The people that originally heard this from Moses' mouth never would have thought this was permission to eat animals when they already were eating animals. They would have been like, oh, wow, we have dominion. We're made in God's image. We're not slaves that were created to serve these pagan Egyptian gods. The earth was made for us. Oh, crap, we were supposed to be vegan, though. You see, that's, I think, how they would have understood it.
Yep, and God is our creator, so it's a good thing you and me are content creators in his image and likeness. Vegan content creators even closer to his image and likeness.
Oh, I'm sure he's a better editor than I'm going to end up being. This doctrine that said we're okay to kill little lesser humans, like if you're stronger than other humans, you can kill them for nutrition. Like, would you just?
That's not Christianity.
Well, I know, but you're kind of appealing to authority in a way.
No,
right?
I'm appealing to truth, right? I'm also appealing to what built the West. So you're enjoying the moral construct.
He's appealing to truth, but then he's using truth to justify the opposite of truth. So I just wanted to point that out.
And he's appealing to truth. It's a moral construct that built the West. Well, like saying there were so many sinful things that built the West. Why would he even make that appeal? That doesn't make sense. And from a guy who's so well educated, you'd think he'd know better.
Yeah, like my life is built on Christ. That's what Jesus says. Those who, after he says the Sermon on the Mount, he says those who hear these sayings of mine and do them are like the person who builds his house on the solid foundation, on the rock. And those who hear these sayings and don't do them, like someone who builds their house in the sand without a foundation. And so then when the wind and waves beat on that house, it collapses. And so that's the rock that I build my house on, is the rock of Christ. And he's that word of God that spoke everything into existence in Genesis 1. And at the conclusion of that, that's when he creates us in his image and likeness and gives us dominion and says, eat this vegan diet and take care of all these animals that have living souls. And he sees everything is very good. So that's the rock that I build my foundation on, is that word of God that is Jesus, that spoke everything into existence and gave us those vegan boundaries.
That basically built the greatest.
I'm sure, yeah, and I'm not going to deny that, it was an important factor of our upbringing. But I think we've come to a point now where we can actually assess the situation and think clearly about it. Why are we inflicting suffering when it can be avoided?
Isn't that you call it your clobber question?
I call it my clobber question because I wanted to come up with something for my atheist watchers to be able to say without having no whole bunch of Bible stuff like we do. It's tough for an atheist to talk to a Christian meat eater. So I'm like, what can they do? And that question, if a Christian has a choice of food that comes from animal abuse or food that doesn't, what should a Christian choose? You can just stand firm on that and just keep repeating it over and over, because they're going to have to say, yes, a Christian can choose animal abuse, which no Christian can do. And it's been very beneficial, at least from the emails that I get from people who read my book. and you hold up your book, Craig. Come on, you got it handy?
I'm using it as a stand.
Oh, don't do it then. Don't mess up anything until we're done. We'll do it when we're over.
yeah. But it's definitely right in front of me. The other point, though, is Cameron Waters in Christspiracy. His clobber question that he uses is, how would Jesus kill an animal? And it's just designed to make people think. So people are like, oh, well, Jesus ate fish, or, whatever, this, that, and the other. He must have been one of these Sadducees that he was speaking against who ate lamb on Passover, or whatever justification they make for Jesus eating animals. Instead of Cam pushing against that, saying, well, actually, based on historical record and his teachings within the Bible, it sounds like he was more closely associated with the Essenes, who, didn't participate in these animal sacrifice or eating meat. Instead of going that route, he's just like, okay, fine. How would Jesus kill an animal? And people are like, well, I didn't expect to be asked that question. I just assumed that he did kill animals and ate them. And it's like, okay, how did he kill them? Did he slit their throat? Did he dismember them? Did he suffocate them? Like, how did he kill them? It's like, well, no matter what way I answer this question, it's going to make Jesus look bad and uncompassionate. And that's not how I want to portray Jesus. And it's like, yeah, because he's not actually like that. And deep down, you know it.
It's beautifully done. I love that, his question. It reminded me, I think her name is Lucy Watson. Have you ever seen an activist? Have you ever heard of her? She was on a TV show. I think it's a British thing. I might get the name wrong, but
know where their meat comes from. And if you're going to buy meat, then why not know that it's come from an ethical farm that's well looked after, and the turkeys have been free range and had a good life?
What do you mean by ethical exactly?
Well, been well looked after. They're free range. They're slaughtered humanely and looked after the best way possible.
What is a humane slaughter?
Well, in the most stress-free possible.
What does that entail?
Well, it entails killing the turkey. But there's no other way of getting your Christmas dinner without killing the turkey.
Just out of interest, how do you kill the turkey? Just genuinely curious.
You slit the turkey's throat.
Okay.
This whole, something humane must have happened in the slaughterhouse. The animals went in as animals and they came out as packaged meat products, and something humane must have gone on. Okay, can you explain what went on that you could possibly construe as being humane? Because anytime a living being goes in as a living being and comes out as packaged animal products, something inhumane must have happened. So let's get down to what that inhumane thing is that we both agree is inhumane.
And that's what Cam's question does, and that's what Lucy did in that interview. Beautiful. I love it. Great activism. Just great.
Reject the premise. First, I don't think it be avoided. Number two, I don't think it's necessarily suffering to kill animals. I think we should do it.
I don't think it's suffering to kill animals. I don't know a single animal that said, yeah, that sounds like a pleasant thing. Let's do it.
As humanely as possible.
Yeah, I did a video one time where I think the animal was blaming. Yeah, the video was called Blaming Jesus. And it was a conversation street outreach where it went on for about an hour, where I was having these conversation with this Christian couple. And they basically brought up every single objection in the book. And we went over literally dozens of their objections. And it got to a point in the conversation at the end where they said, well, I don't think I'm causing harm to animals when I kill them to eat them. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, isn't that the most obvious, straightforward kind of harm, like killing someone? Yeah. I mean, if someone punches me, they're like, oh yeah, well, they harmed you. They punched you. They gave you a black eye. I'm like, okay, if somebody kills me, that's way worse than punching me. I would much rather someone punch me than kill me. And that's just harm on a greater scale. Just like if you beat your child, you're causing harm to your child. But if you kill your child, that's that same form of abuse but even worse. And so if you're killing animals to eat them and you're trying to say that you're not causing them suffering or you're not harming them, it's like, is this really how far we have to go away from logic and reason and any semblance of common sense to justify what you're doing when you're trying to claim that I'm not causing harm or suffering to animals by slitting their throats and eating their bodies? It's like,
But and in their brain that makes sense though. It makes sense to them. It's the cognitive dissonance. Their brain will do whatever it can to defend its point of view. It
like
just
this
won't
is
allow
how
it.
yeah, this is how far we have to stray from reason in order to justify continuing without being morally conflicted internally. So we have to abandon reason and compassion altogether.
Yeah. And as soon as you realize that's what's so hard is like as soon as you realize that, to know people who were once vegan and went back, I'm like, wow, that's hard for me to even have a conversation with. Like, I'll cut a lot of slack to a meat eater, and because they haven't made the connection. Are they guilty? Yes, but I don't know, would I say not as guilty as somebody who does? Well, it's like in Galatians, once you know the truth and you go back into the lie, you've fallen from grace. There's only one place in the Bible where you can fall from grace, and that's when you know the truth of Jesus, but you still go back to the law. It's like once you know the truth of veganism, but you still go back to eating meat, then there remains no sacrifice for you. It's a Bible thing. Maybe Craig will understand that.
Yeah, it's described as a dog returning to his own vomit.
Oh,
yeah, and it's like a dog will throw up and then it'll return to it and go, oh, maybe I'll eat that again, that thing that caused me to vomit. And it's like, isn't that even worse than like the thing that you ate that caused you to vomit? And so similarly, yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
Question, it might seem a little inappropriate.
Oh, and to anybody watching, I usually don't post videos like what this guy here, I'm showing a video clip of where it's on that side, wherever it is, of his video. So he's playing the animal slaughterhouse footage, and you might not want to watch this. I don't blame you.
Maybe we could just play the audio and leave it off screen while he's showing this.
Feel free to not answer it. Sure. So, are you pro-life?
Yeah, I mean, you can. This is a separate.
Well, it's not separate. You say the killing of cows is a slaughter.
Well, okay.
Is the killing of unborn babies a slaughter?
Yeah. So I thought you were gonna bring that up. I mean, personally, I think abortion is really like people treat it as such a easy and like simple thing to do. Like they don't give it the care that it deserves. I don't think we should just have blanket abortions, right?
Okay, fair enough. I just want you to think about.
So I'm mostly pro-life.
But you can understand why I asked the question, which is some vegans, not you, are, slaughterhouses are terrible of cows, sure, but Planned
And they
Parenthood
have
is
a
fine.
contradiction, sure. Yeah.
And I think there's a big contradiction. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the respect. You have the free will. Yes. You're free will to be vegan, and I wish you a happy life.
All right.
Thank
well,
you.
I would just ask you to just consider it again.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
And I think the guy did an excellent job talking to Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to also mention that the reason I even found out about this video is because Alex, I started doing a Bible study with him recently, him and Gianna and a few other of our friends. And he's been very receptive to us sharing the gospel and sharing the word of God with him. And he said he wants to continue studying with us, and we're going to meet with him again. And so I really appreciate how committed he is to veganism and how knowledgeable he is. And I think that really shows in this video how knowledgeable he is on veganism. But he admits that he doesn't know much about the Christian faith. He's like, oh, well, I agree with some of the tenets of like the Catholic faith or whatever. But when I've been having personal conversations with, not personal, but having conversations with him in person in these Bible studies, he's asking a lot of really good questions, and he's very receptive to the answers that we're giving as well. So I just think that's really awesome when, let's say, Alex, who's definitely on the right side of God's will in terms of being vegan, and Charlie, who's definitely on the right side of God's will in terms of believing in Jesus and living as best as you perceive that to be, living according to the will of God. And so they're both right about something and they're both wrong about something, and they're trying to have a dialogue with each other. And I wish more people would do that. And so that's one of the things I really like about this video. And as you said, it's a shame that Charlie died so early before he was able to fully make this connection. But the fact that he's been having so many debates, this is what, the 5th time you had a debate with a vegan, like clearly he's engaging in this more and more often, that I think, you know, at some point he has a conversation with us, and that's the tipping point where he's like, you know what, now it makes sense, because all the people he's debating are people who are secular vegans who don't know the scriptures. And so he's never come across, assumingly, that someone like us who knows the scripture as well as he does and can actually just have the conversation solely from the perspective of scripture without bringing in all these other things that Alex keeps trying to talk about. And so just like with Alex, he's fully convinced about the veganism, but then if he's only talking about Christianity with people like Charlie Kirk, who are saying, oh, well, God, you know, wants us to kill animals, he gives us dominion, and animals don't have a soul. Well, Alex is like, I don't know how to argue against that. I guess the Bible says the animals don't have souls, and I guess we have dominion, and that's a license to kill and eat the animals. And so now it's not until Alex comes across people like me and like Gianna and other people that are like, no, actually that's wrong, and here's why it's wrong, that he's like, oh, so like all these things that I've been taught by other Christians is actually wrong, and actually God does want us to be vegan. It's like, yes. And so if Alex is able to start making the connections now about Christianity and veganism, then I would presume that just as Charlie Kirk made the connection with Christianity, he would at some point also make the connection with veganism when he, you know, would meet the right people. So, and Gianna made a really good point that I like. She said, well, now he's going to be vegan in the kingdom.
This is something that I'm going to ask you if you've noticed it. It's amazing how veganism was the wall between an unbeliever becoming a believer. I've met, because of what I do and what we both do, I had no idea. When I wrote the book, it was to teach activists how to talk to Christians. I had no idea that so many Christians would come to me and say, I couldn't be vegan because I thought God wanted me to eat animals. So now I'm willing, or atheists who said I can't become Christian. Excuse me, I got that reversed. Atheists who have come to me saying I could never be Christian because of this, but now that I know, I want to find out more. And I'm just like, it's like a slant, for us Jesus freaks, that's score. I mean, I didn't come into it to do that. I'm not an evangelist, but having that outcome is just so, to me, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, and I'm wearing my Creation Care Church shirt. That's the church that I'm the pastor of, and I do my sermons there. And we have, across our social media accounts, we have probably 4,000 followers. And it's a cross section of, a lot of them are people who are already Christian vegan, but a lot of them stopped going to churches because the pastor would get up there saying, well, I had my bacon this morning, and a pig wouldn't have liked this, just making jokes, and like, well, this church isn't for me. And so it's a lot of people who are already Christian and vegan, but they don't have a home church. Now they feel like they have a home church where the pastor is passionately promoting God's will with respect to how we're supposed to treat animals. And I make it very clear in all of my messages, promoting veganism as God's perfect will, or at least a major component of his perfect will. And then there's two other demographics of people. One is people who are already Christian, but they're not yet vegan, and they're wanting to learn more, and they have a bunch of questions. And then either they leave because they're like, I don't want somebody who knows the Bible better than me to convince me to be vegan. I'd rather just, throw up some talking points and leave. It's like, all right, whatever. But then the people who are genuinely interested in learning and want to do the will of God, they become vegan. And then they're like, wow, this church elevated me to a closer relationship with God, and they stick around. And then the third group of people that join are people who started out as either atheist or agnostic, or at least not Christian, and they're vegan, and they're like, and I hear this from activists. I'm sure it's echoing what you just said, where so many of my vegan friends, they say to me, Craig, you're the only person that I'm willing to listen to talk to me about God. And because the way you present it is so much more genuine and so much more knowledgeable, and so much where, like, when you speak, I can hear truth in it, some form of that. And so that's the third category of people. And that's where they're already vegan and they know it's correct to be vegan, and they're hearing the Bible and they're hearing scripture and they're hearing the gospel from the perspective of someone else who is just as convinced as they are that being vegan is the right way. And so I think some people, they just need to find the right person who's ready to teach them the things. And I'm not saying I'm necessarily a teacher. I'm more of like conveying, as a student, as a disciple of Jesus, the things I've already learned, the pathways that I've already trodden in like the past 20, 30 and whatever years, and sharing that in a way that others resonate with, and others are like, wow, like now this makes sense to me. And so I think a lot of times it just comes down to reaching the right people. And so, yeah, I get that a lot, what you're talking about too.
Isn't it nice?
Love it.
All right, folks.
Maybe we should make this our life mission, to preach this message to people.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's the goal. I said that to Craig before we got on. I'm like, my goal is I want to retire within this year and just go completely into activism. One of the joys of being old is that I pretty soon will not have to work, so I can do this full time, which would be, well, if the Lord wills, then it's going to be what I do. I didn't think I'd be doing it, though, to be honest.
I took the other strategy. Instead of waiting until retirement, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stop at the peak of my career, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to minimize my expenses. I'm going to live out of my vehicle, and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to, instead of saving up enough money to do it, I'll just be voluntarily poor to preach the message. So here I am in year 6 of this.
Well, I am so grateful that you did, because I've learned so much from you. I know everybody who attends your Friday Night Live sermons, I guess we call them, and they just all appreciate your teaching. So thanks very much for making that commitment.
I appreciate what you're doing too, all your street activism, your videos you make, and I look forward to more of these collaborative projects with you in the future, Steve. And also,
right on.
Of course,
hold up that book.
Yeah, there we go.
Not my book, your book.
Oh, my book. Well, that's also in here,
dude.
Yeah, I told you it was gonna fall.
All right, and to anybody who's watching, if you like what Craig talks about, you like what I do, no, just show your book, man, because this is how he supports himself, and that's how we support our ministries. If you call, I can't call mine a ministry, but it's definitely Craig's ministry. Get his book. It's available on Amazon. I got the digital because I'm that kind of guy, but the hard copy book is not only good to read, but it's also good for propping up your computer camera.
Yes, it is. And I don't actually make money off my book yet. I'm putting it all back into advertising. So I just want the message to get out there. But yeah, it does support. Yeah.
That's kind of what Marie and I do. It's when we're doing the reptile rescue, anything that the animals generated is what paid for the rescue efforts, because it's a bottomless pit. I could spend $1 million on Friday and to rescue animals, and I did another $1 million on Saturday. It was so we had to have a line on where we're done. So, for me, it's like, okay, the book will finance this much, but we've also had sponsors. I've been very lucky to get some guys to, a food company to give me some sponsorship to pay for me to go out and do veg fests and things like that. Because airfare and hotel, I don't make money. It's just a matter of paying for the airfare and hotel, because that's, but the book sales help that too. So that's it, guys. All right. We are almost at the 90-minute mark because we get rambling off. I'm going to say goodbye. Everybody say goodbye, Craig.
Bye.
All right. Thank you very much for watching.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed it. I hope if you've learned something from this. And until my next video, my prayer for you all is peace, love, and all things groovy. Bye-bye.